Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League mode. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our My League expansion series with the Louisville Legionnaires. Now, before we get started, a few words about the last episode. The full-length CPU versus CPU game was certainly an experiment, and to be honest, the reception was about what I had expected. Reading through your comments, I think there is a place for full-length games or at least longer episodes of this format. However, we will very likely stay away from CPU versus CPU gameplay for the foreseeable future. The game was simply not that entertaining, the gameplay wasn't great to look at, it was slow, it was static, we had a lot of missed shots, a lot of turnovers on both sides, no real highlights throughout the entire game apart from that one Chick Diallo alley-oop in the first quarter, and I definitely understand that this is not the type of content that you want to watch. Nonetheless, thank you all for your feedback, it confirmed pretty much what I already suspected, so for today's episode and for the next few weeks we will return to the already familiar format. We will start things off, however, with a small surprise. I already mentioned this near the end of the last episode, and there were actually one or two comments on the last video that probably inadvertently guessed what's about to happen next. Because I think after 2 full seasons in the NBA, the Louisville Legionnaires are due for a bit of a rebrand. And the first thing that we had to change, of course, was the logo. This right here is the familiar old one, created directly here in the game, and while it works for us, it's also nothing special. And this is why, drumroll please, this right here is the new one. Now, first things first, I created this entirely myself, and I would have loved to get some sort of a Legionnaires helmet in the middle of it. Sadly, I couldn't really find anything that worked, and so I settled for what we have right now. Maybe a few words about the elements of that logo. The grey round thing that you see here is supposed to resemble a Legionnaire shield, however I slightly spiced it up with the basketball theme in the middle. The laurels stand once again a throwback to ancient Rome as a symbol of victory and success. I also opted for the red Legionnaires banderole at the bottom, not only because I wanted to display the team name in the logo, but also because I wanted to use it to show off the third team color. So our new team colors going forward will therefore now be red, grey and this yellowish gold. Now, the logo is of course not the only thing I changed. I also finally decided to move the Louisville Legionnaires into a more suitable arena, and we're not going with a fictional one this time. Starting with the next game, the Legionnaires will play in the existing KFC YUM Center in Louisville. This arena is also home of the Louisville Cardinals in real life, and I also tried to keep the arena floor as similar as possible to the Cardinals one, just to show off a bit of hometown loyalty there. Now, interestingly enough, the move to the new arena happens on the second regular season game, but I suppose this also allowed the Legionnaires to use opening night as a bit of a farewell game, saying goodbye to the old arena, and then very conveniently our next game will also be a home game, so then we have some sort of opening night part 2. Now, of course, the rebrand wouldn't be complete without new uniforms, and because we also have new team colors, we don't really get around that. A quick look here at the old home uniform, my favorite one in the old set. However, I think the new one right here is still an improvement. We stay with white, red and grey for this one, the yellowish gold does not make an appearance. I also opted for longer stripes on the side to add a bit of accent, and we also have a small KFC advertising patch on the chest. Moving on to the away uniform, the old one was red already, and since red is still one of our team's colors, the new one will be as well, featuring once again white and grey and the same patterns to spice things up a bit. Last but not least, the alternate uniform. This one didn't really see a lot of action so far, and I admit it was a bit bland. However, with the introduction of a stronger, brighter third team color, this will now change. The alternate uniform therefore now kept in the same design as the previous two, however it is the only uniform in the set that heavily features this goldish yellow. And yeah, that's about it. That's how the Louisville Legionnaires will present themselves from here on out. Of course, let me know in the comments below what you think. At the moment, I'm really happy with how things turned out, but that of course does not mean that we cannot make some minor tweaks here and there. Enough with the rebrand though, let's put the new stuff into action. We have a home game against the Cleveland Cavaliers coming up, and what better way to kick off fresh new uniforms and a new home arena than against one of the powerhouses of the Eastern Conference. And surprisingly, the first quarter of this game was already pretty lopsided. After 12 minutes of action, the Legionnaires are already up by 9, scoring a whopping 34 points in quarter number 1. That lead was definitely fueled by an incredible performance from Josh Richardson, who scored 16 points in this first quarter, hitting 7 of 8 shots from the field, most of them inside of the paint. The situation very similar than at halftime, the Legionnaires still with an 8-point lead. Turnovers were a bit of a problem in this first half, but apart from that our shooting was much more efficient, we absolutely destroyed the Cavaliers in the rebounding department, and all of that helped us to keep the lead that we built up in the first quarter. Quarter number 3 then was the decisive one for this game. The Legionnaires completely pulled away in this one and increased the 8-point lead to a 23-point lead. Our second unit completely demolished the Cavaliers bench, and one of the main guys responsible for the turnaround was small forward Kyle Kuzma, who I believe scored 13 or 15 points in this third quarter, and who seemed to grow especially comfortable with his 3-point shot from the right corner. The fourth quarter then wasn't really all that competitive. Thanks to the already pretty sizable lead, it was more of the same, bench unit versus bench unit, and so we continued to wreak havoc on the Cavaliers reserves to ultimately finish our first game in the KFC YUM Center with a dominant 117-84 victory. All of our players got to play in this one. We even saw some minutes from Rajon Rondo, Juan Hernan Gomez and Rashad Vaughn, and all in all I couldn't be happier with how this game turned out. The scoring load then was pretty evenly spread, also because none of our players played too heavy minutes. Richardson here leading the way with 22 points on an incredible 90% shooting performance. Kyle Kuzma followed suit with 17 points in 17 minutes, including a handful of 3-pointers, definitely able to bounce back from the poor game he had last time. Rookie Andre Flanders was once again able to score in double digits, finishing the game with 13 points ahead of Rodney Hood, who had 12, and Bryce Johnson, who had 11. Johnson had a bit of an off night here today, shooting only 5 of 14 from the field, but I'm sure he will be able to bounce back. Mohamed Bamba then had a stat line that I'd like to see a bit more often from him, a double-double with 10 points and 13 rebounds, and also getting it done on the defensive end with 1 steal and 3 blocks. Tyler Ulis was not overly quiet but also not overly spectacular in this game. He finished just shy of a double-digit scoring performance with 9 points, 2 rebounds, 6 assists and 2 steals. Definitely not bad numbers, considering the rest of the team picked up the majority of the scoring load, and if Ulis can keep the assists and steals coming, there is not too much to complain about here. His backup Derek White then shot a perfect 4 of 4 from the field to finish the game with 9 points in 17 minutes, and he also got some work done on the defensive end and managed to get himself 3 steals in the process. Jack Diallo once again did start and put up a respectable, although not spectacular stat line, 8 points, 7 rebounds, a steal and 2 blocks on 4 of 5 shooting, also the highest plus-minus rating on the team next to Mohamed Bamba, so while it might not show up on the stat screen, he is definitely helping out. Deontay Davis then grabbed 8 rebounds off the bench in only 18 minutes, another performance that falls right in line with my expectations. All in all, I think a more than convincing debut for the rebranded Legionnaires here, and a quick look at the team stats here adds a bit more to that. The Legionnaires shooting almost 60% from the field and over 40% from 3, while the Cavaliers failed to execute in both areas, finishing with 36 and 24% respectively. Like I said earlier, our bench one of the deciding factors in this game, outscoring the Cavaliers bench 56-26, and that 30-point difference is pretty well reflected in the end result. So here we are, first game in the KFC YUM Center behind us. We have another one coming up against the Phoenix Suns, and let's see how the Legionnaires did in that one. Well, sadly not all too successful. The Suns came to Louisville and absolutely crushed the Legionnaires. The final result here of 124-111 does not really tell the whole story, as this game was pretty much out of reach by halftime. With this win, by the way, the Suns improved their record to 4-1, good enough for first place in the Western Conference. So the youth movement in Phoenix is definitely paying off, as the Suns currently have 5 80+ players on the roster, in Eric Bledsoe, Devin Booker, Josh Jackson, TJ Warren and sophomore Michael Porter, and with a few other players very close to that rating as well. So definitely a team to keep an eye on, but for the moment let's focus again on the Legionnaires, whose leading scorers in this game were the 2 shooting guards Josh Richardson and Andre Flanders. Both with 21 points, Richardson a bit more efficient than Flanders, shooting a perfect 4 of 4 from 3, while Flanders shot 100% from the free throw line on 7 attempts. Rodney Hood and Mohamed Bamba the other 2 guys in double digits, and Bamba had a pretty impressive double-double here tonight with 13 points and 17 rebounds. Point guard Tyler Ulis once again did his fair share of passing and accumulated 10 assists, but he remained pretty quiet on the scoring front. So, 3 home games down, time to finally hit the road, and our first stop is Dallas, where the Mavericks have a chance to introduce us to first overall draft pick Grant McLeod. McLeod is currently coming off the bench for the Mavericks behind Dennis Smith Jr., but he is putting up some pretty nice numbers, scoring roughly 14 points per game in about 28 minutes. The game itself then once again pretty lopsided, this time however in our favor. The Legionnaires pulled away pretty early in the first and never looked back, and so I would say the 22-point victory here is more than deserved. This block by Bamba here, by the way, probably my highlight of the game. Speaking of highlights, we had not one but two guys scoring 31 points here tonight, and I believe that is actually the first time in franchise history that two players score 30 or more points in a game, so congratulations to Josh Richardson and Rodney Hood for their tremendous scoring efforts here tonight. Richardson, by the way, is currently on an insane hot streak from 3. He shot 4 of 4 from deep in the last game and was actually able to improve that here tonight with 5 of 5. Tyler Hill is this time a bit more visible in the scoring column with 12 points, to go along with 9 assists but also with 6 turnovers. Kyle Kuzma and Andre Flanders both also able to score in double digits, and with that, through 4 games, Andre Flanders has actually never scored in single digits so far. We also had quite a few impressive performances on the defensive end. Starting things off is Mohamed Bamba, who only scored 6 points but grabbed 10 rebounds and blocked 5 shots, including, like you saw earlier, an absolute monster block on Dennis Smith Jr. Jack Diallo also did his fair share of work on the glass and grabbed 13 rebounds tonight. His performance, however, would be topped by Deontay Davis, who went up for 16 boards to go along with 4 rebounds in only 21 minutes of action. After the game, a quick look at Josh Richardson here, because so far the guy has just been insane on the scoring end. He is currently leading the team in scoring with 22.5 points per game, and he's doing that with absolutely ridiculous shooting percentages, shooting 65% from the field, and yes, you're seeing that correctly, 92% from 3 on 3 attempts per game. He will probably not be able to keep those numbers up, and yes, it is a small sample size, but I think it's safe to say that Richardson is absolutely crushing it so far. Now, before we jump into our next game against the Denver Nuggets, one quick roster move here. This was suggested by many of you and I think it's a very good idea. We will quickly send rookie Mitch Dennis down to the G League, where he will be able to get some valuable playing time instead of simply warming the bench for the Legionnaires. Denver, by the way, hasn't won a single of their 5 games so far, despite bringing out a pretty capable roster night after night, so we'll see if the trend continues or if they'll be able to get their first win against us. And no, it seems like the trend does indeed continue. We hand the Denver Nuggets their 6th straight loss and in convincing fashion. The end result 112-81 and another victory at home for the Legionnaires. Our leading scorers, once again the shooting guards Flanders and Richardson, this time Flanders with a slight edge, scoring 22 and Richardson with 21. Mohamed Bamba also had another impressive performance here tonight, 15 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals and 3 blocks. Those are definitely elite big man numbers and leave high hopes for his future. From Louisville we then travel over to Boston, where we sadly lose to the Celtics in a close finish, the Legionnaires just with a few fouls and turnovers too many here, and that was enough for Boston to squeeze by on a 6-point victory. For a change, nobody scored above 20, but Richardson once again leads the list with 19 points, although admittedly his efficiency has suffered a bit. Mohamed Bamba, the next best scorer, once again with a fantastic stat line here, 15 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists and 4 blocks in 31 minutes. I honestly admit I did not expect him to make that kind of jump this season. Tyler Ulis also got himself a double-double, although a slightly less impressive one, with 11 points and 10 assists. Andre Flanders, meanwhile, once again scores in double digits and with that keeps the streak alive. 2 days later then, the rematch against the Nuggets, this time in Denver, and this time also with a slightly different result. The Nuggets had a sensational shooting performance in this one, and they were able to build themselves a very comfortable lead early in the first half, and from that point onwards they never really looked back. The end result therefore a more than deserved 104-125 defeat. No surprises then in the box score. Richardson once again leads all scorers with 22, followed by Flanders with 19, while Johnson, Hood and Bamba were also all able to add double-digit scoring performances, however in the end sadly to no avail. Bamba's streak of impressive stat lines also came to an end in this one. 11 points and 7 rebounds is definitely nothing to complain about, but by now we are used to a bit more from him. From Denver, we then make our way over to LA for a matchup against the Clippers, who are, just like the Nuggets, presenting a pretty formidable roster at the moment, a roster that has helped them to a respectable 4-1 record. And that record would improve to 5-1 after this game, as the Clippers beat us by 21 points, 128-107. For a change, we have a different name at the top of the scoring list tonight, as Rodney Hood leads all players with 21 points, followed by Johnson, Davis, Diallo and Bamba. Taliulis also barely missed the double-double with 8 points and 11 assists, while after now 8 games, Andre Flanders' double-digit scoring streak also comes to an end, as the rookie finished this game with only 7 points. What follows is a long 1-week break for the Legionnaires, who then pick things back up 7 days later in a home game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this one was definitely a game for the history books. Not only was it a competitive back and forth all game long, and not only did the Legionnaires come away with a narrow 5-point victory in the end, and it also wasn't enough for Mohamed Bamba to bust out the 360 dunk here. Nope, Mohamed Bamba also had to finish the game with a stat line for the ages, scoring 22 points and grabbing an astronomical 31 rebounds. Yes, Bamba collected pretty much every single shot that clanked off the rim in this game, and he now joins a small but elite group of players who have achieved what he just did, grabbing 30 or more rebounds in a single game. Needless to say, we now have a new franchise rebounding record. One more big reason for the victory here tonight, who shouldn't go unmentioned, is of course Bryce Johnson, who led the Legionnaires with a very efficient 28-point scoring performance, while our guards, apart from Josh Richardson, all struggled a bit to put the ball in the basket. So here we are now, 9 games into the season, 4 wins, 5 losses, a rebrand and a historical rebounding performance behind us, and looking at the length of the episode, I think it is about time we make the cut here. Of course, let me know your thoughts on the season so far. How do you like the new branding? How do you like the team's performance after 9 games? As always, I would be happy to hear what you guys think. Also, of course, leave a thumbs up if you liked the episode, and if you want to support the channel, then go ahead and feel free to subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!